All right, everybody, I want to go ahead and call the House Transportation Committee meeting to order. Um, we only have one item on the agenda today, and it is working House Bill 2147. The reason it's happening at this time is, as you know, we're not an executive committee. We need to work this thing today so that it doesn't have to lay over for the next year. The parties that are involved in this, it's my understanding, have came to an agreement on a solution for this bill. All of you should have a copy of a amendment at your desk. It's got darn near more red line on it than it does the normal uh, the language that it started out with. So at this time, I'll make a motion to approve the amendment. Do I have a second? Second is by Representative Hoheisel. Chris, can you go over what the amendment does?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what the amendment would do is pretty much strike the original purpose of the bill, which would require a person providing record towing service or public agency to acquire a certificate of title before making a sale of the vehicle pursuant to the abandoned and towed vehicle statutes. Under those procedures, instead, what would be in place is a certification of compliance form, process, and procedure. So that is all laid out in what is now new section 1. So a person who provides record towing service or public agency shall provide this certification of compliance to a purchaser upon the sale and transfer of a vehicle pursuant to these statutes, the abandoned tow vehicle statutes. Obviously, that would the certification of compliance in subsection B said it shall certify that the requirements of KSA 8-1102 through 8-1104 and amendments thereto have been met by the public agency. So that's all these storage and notice requirements that are currently required under law. The towing or public agency company would certify that those requirements have been met, and then, like I said, provide this form to the purchaser upon sale. Subsection C would state that the fees. Well, sorry, going back, there's a fee of $20 to receive this form. Those fees could be passed on as part of the sale of the vehicle or applied to an owner of a vehicle if the owner claims the vehicle prior to being sold at a public auction. And then subsection D would additionally state that VIN inspection requirements under KSA 8-116A have been met. Again, that's something that the certification of compliance would certify that's been completed as well. That applies to sales of out-of-state vehicles or that are registered or titled in another jurisdiction other than Kansas. Section 1 and Section 5, those were exemptions for registration, and from the Vehicle Dealers and Manufacturers Act, those were exemptions that would apply through the certificate of title process. So those sections have been stricken. They are not being repealed. They're just being stricken from the bill. Section 2 on the new language would be stricken from the bill, and that language that says public agency shall provide a certification of compliance to a purchaser upon the sale and transfer of a vehicle authorized by this section. And then that second balloon will be on page 4 of the bill. Is just restoring old language that was stricken. So that is current language. It's not new language. Then in section 3, similarly, language that was added in the bill is stricken, and instead a certification of compliance language is inserted, that a person provide a record of towing service and selling a vehicle pursuant to the statute shall provide that form to the purchaser. In section 4, that language is stricken from the bill. That really just contains notice requirements and didn't actually authorize sales, so maybe it shouldn't have been included in the original bill. But that notice requirement statute is accounted for in the new Section 1 language by saying that the certification of compliance certifies that the requirements of 1102, 1103, and 1104 have been met. And then finally, you'll see on the last page, sorry, I'm getting last page, the effective date is January 1, 2024. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions.
Committee, so let me ask the first question. So my understanding of what we're doing here, Chris, basically is we used to give a possessory lien affidavit. We basically replaced that possessory lien affidavit with a certificate of compliance where the tow truck driver is certifying to the purchaser that they've complied with the regulations, Is that the notifications and such? Is that correct?
No, it's not replacing the possessory lien affidavit. That is still how these vehicles are sold under statute. This is just an additional form as part of the sale that would just certify further that the notice and storage requirements have been met, and then the vehicle is still sold on a possessory lien affidavit.
The vehicle is still sold on the possessory lien affidavit?
Correct, and in addition to this form.
And then the certificate of compliance, what function does that perform in this bill?
It's a form that would be given to a towing or public agency company that wants to sell a vehicle pursuant to these statutes after they've met the storage and notice requirements that they have met those storage and notice requirements. The form is in a form and a manner approved by the Secretary of Revenue or the Secretary's designee. So it would be up to that agency to define what all the form would entail.
So how will that certificate of compliance solve the problems that the purchasers of these vehicles have had in the past?
I think the intention is that the salvage dealer, the purchaser of the vehicle, would no longer be delayed from either crushing the vehicle or subsequently selling it further, and they could acquire. I'm sorry, thank you, because I forgot to mention in subsection A in the new section language, there's a sentence that says the certification of compliance allows the purchaser of the vehicle to get a certificate of title that's free and clear of all liens. So that's kind of it, at least does not. I think the intention is that it doesn't delay that part of the process.
So the treasurer, the tow truck driver takes a possessory lien affidavit into the county treasurer. The county treasurer issues a certificate of compliance, and then they sell it in public auction, and then the purchaser can go get a title with both of those documents.
I believe that is how the process would work.
And one of the things, committee, we're going to do things a little bit different because of the size and the complexity of this amendment. I just want you to know we have Leanne Phelps with the Division of Motor Vehicles in the audience, and we have Lindsay Leibach with Motor Carriers, and then we also have Representative Auerkamp, who has carried this bill for the salvage owners. So if you've got questions and you want to direct it to one of those three, again, this is a agreed upon compromise, but I want everybody to feel comfortable with the nature of the amendment. Representative Proctor, did you have a question?
I didn't realize we were going to have other folks come up. I'll wait until they
But we're not going to have other folks necessarily come up unless you want to direct a question to one of them.
I don't know if this is a question for the revisor or for one of those parties, but my question is, does this basically move liability to the county because the county accepted that certificate or issued that certificate? And now if something wasn't done right, now the county's on the hook?
Chris?
I don't think it would increase liability on the county's part. It's the towing company or public agency that is completing the form and presumably would state that they've met all those requirements to then sell the vehicle.
basically my understanding is towing company says they did everything right. So if they didn't do everything right, then they've got the liability when they didn't do something right. Representative Minix?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's the way it sounds to me. I agree with you. But if some of our experts here could come to the mic and make sure that I'm seeing this correctly, it looks like the time frame and everything needs to be dealt with by the towing companies so that when it's sold to a salvage company, they don't have the delays. It's the towing company that assumes the responsibility to make sure there are no liens or other problems out there. It's just a little bit short of being a title. Is that correct?
Who wants to come answer? Leanne? Leanne's probably more of a disinterested party in this, maybe. Go ahead.
Leanne Phelps, Vehicle Services Manager for the Division of Vehicles. So how we see this bill working is it keeps the burden of creating the proper paperwork on the selling party. That's really all we're trying to do, is not leave that unsuspecting buyer with something that's not transferable. So the process would still pretty much remain the same for the tow company, except it would add in, you get a pre-check or a certification by the county before you hold your auction, certifying that all your documents are in order, so your buyer can then go get title without running into any kind of issues.
Thank you for clearing that up. Appreciate it.
Hey, while you're up there, Leanne, so it's your understanding, where does the $20 go?
The $20 would remain with the county, or KVTSC probably can do the same process. Whoever checks the paperwork and certifies that it's okay. The way I see it working is the form would be distributed to the tow companies. They would fill out the vehicle information. The county would then sign the bottom and certify that all the steps have been met.
And then I did talk to the president of the Treasurers Association before the meeting. They had some concerns, and another one of their concerns, the $20 was one, but also it says we have no transaction in MOVRS that will do this. It sounds as though it's a paper process. It sounds as though KDOR will have to develop a transaction type in the program. Is that the way you understand?
Well, we're definitely going to create a payment type. I need to talk to my system administrator further to see if we can generate a receipt or something that would make that really clear that it's been run through a county, and in addition to the certification. We just don't want to open up another door for fraud and people filling out their own forms or anything like that. So moving it to January of 2024 as an effective date will give us time to kind of work through some of those holes we see.
Representative Proctor, did you have a question?
Oh, I guess the same question I asked the revisor. How is this not shifting the burden of liability to the county? Because the tow company, to some extent, that county treasurer just has to believe the tow company when they say, yeah, I tried to do this and didn't get an answer.
So I don't think it shifts the burden any more than the process we're using today, because the tow company is bound by statute to go through a certain set of requirements. The county has discretion to review those supporting documents and say whether they meet those requirements or not. All this does is kind of push it in front of the auction so that they're getting that check by a county rep, a titling agency, prior to that auction. So it doesn't really shift the burden. It's just
Not so much the burden, but the liability.
the liability. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it shifts liability to a county any more than what they were doing before. Yeah.
So I think what's happening, Representative Proctor, I mean, we're all trying to assimilate this really quick, but what used to happen was they had the possessory lien. They went to the auction. Then the guy took the possessory lien to get a title, and the county's going, oh, you can't title this. So now what we're doing is we're saying the possessory lien has to go to the title to get the certificate of compliance. And the reason we have to add that step is they don't own the vehicle at that time. The owner can still come back and redeem it, basically.
Right.
And so we're saying the county has checked it just like they would have a title, so that when when they take it to when the purchaser takes it to the county at the end with those two documents, they get a title like that.
Right.
Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, it should not hold up that end buyer from getting the title because someone's pre-certified that all the requirements were met.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sounds-
I understand. I understand. I will make sure we're not accidentally just shifting the blame, but.
And we have had a number of treasurers looking at this thing too to make sure that they're on board.
Thank you.
Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope I don't make it too complicated, but I know we're going to get asked this question because look at all the questions we have here. Okay, so I go to the tow lot and I find a car that I want. Now, tell me how does this go with me? I'm new. I don't know anything about this.
So typically what happens is the tow lot, they've towed the vehicle. They've gone through their requirements to check who the current owners are, send out notification to an owner, a lender, any interested parties in our system. They've published it in a publication. That's likely where you're going to see it and know to go look. Okay, because they have to publish notice of the sale. They're going to and then they need to get the vehicle inspected if it falls out within the criteria that requires an inspection. So at that point, the tow company would take all their documents to the county, get them reviewed, get them certified by the county. Then they hold their auction. You attend the auction, you pay your fee, you get the vehicle, you get the documents, the possessory lien, the certification, and the other supporting documents. And then you go to the county and you title and register in your name.
And when I go there, they tell me I don't have everything I need.
Well, that's the point of the certification, is to try to prevent that. We're going to have the county, we're going to have it reviewed so that those buyers, so individuals like you that come in and are unfamiliar with the process, there are some salvage yards or scrap yards that buy from these guys, but they don't get to see the paperwork in advance. So this will help alleviate that, we believe.
Thank you. Now that is clear. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do we have any other questions? Representative Delperdane.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. This may be just a repeat here, but I'm just trying to regurgitate this thing. So the original bill is stated all over there. You had to have a certificate of title. I understand that. The new amendment talks about the certificate of compliance. So once I have the certificate of compliance, what is involved to actually obtain, one, the certificate, but two, to get a title at that point?
So the certificate would be obtained by the tow company meeting all their requirements. So today when they do a possessory lien, they have to show us proof that they mailed, like by certified mail, to the owner or the lien holder. They have to show us that they published it. So they have to give us some supporting documents to that possessory lien affidavit. So what they're doing today is gathering all those supporting documents and just going to the county prior to the sale.
Okay.
So that's just an extra step for the tow company. And we get that that's, a kind of a probably a bit of a pain for them, but it's we feel necessary to try to resolve what happens on the back end, which is the unsuspecting buyers coming in, not knowing what to look for, what's needed, and then finding out later. To get the title, it's the same process. Buyers, there's no change in that process from what we do today. The buyer goes to the auction, pays for the vehicle, gets the documents, goes to the county to obtain title.
Okay. But under this new certificate of compliance process, what checks and balances are there to keep from vehicle theft? I run a tow truck and I go out and grab someone's vehicle and I apply for the certificate.
That's a little bit of a different animal. This process is prone to some fraud. We do have some checks and balances that are already in place to try to monitor that kind of thing and respond to that. We have an investigative unit at KDOR. We refer these kinds of transactions if they're questionable to them. So it's not really going to fix fraud issues. It's going to fix the buyer getting the short end of the stick, so to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Representative Minix.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate all the questions that are clarifying this issue. I'd also like to take it just a step farther, and it might not apply to this amendment. Let's say a tow company has a vehicle and they go through the proper process according to this amendment, and they have the certificate and they put it up for auction, and a salvage company buys this, and it's a vehicle that they don't believe, they pull a few parts off, but they're going to crush that vehicle. If they've sold it to someone to go back out on the road, it would have to have a title on it. They go through the county treasurer's office. If it's a vehicle that they know they're going to crush, do they really have to go ahead and get a title?
Yeah, that was some of the discussion that we had last time we talked about this, and some of the conferees testified about that they used to just turn in the possessory lien to the Division of Vehicles to end of life the vehicle, and once NMVIDIS, which is the national title database, once we came on board with that, we could no longer do that. We have to have a title to end date. We have to have something to say it was crushed. We don't do it just off of the VIN. We use a title number as well. So either way, they have to get the title.
They have to get the title to
Right.
crush
So
it.
if they want to sell it, they need the title. If they want to end of life it, they need a title.
So they have to go through the process to get the title, and then basically report that it's going to be crushed, and that is the end of life of that vehicle.
Right. If that's the way they're going to go, yes, they would.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Goddard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the answer to the question is if the towing company had a title already and they sold the car to a scrapper, they just transfer title. Is that correct?
Correct, except in this possessory lien process, they're not an owner. They just have a lien against.
No, but if all right, let's say I'm a private person. I have a title on my vehicle.
Correct.
And a salvage company wants to crush my car for whatever it's worth. I have to transfer title when they do that.
Correct.
So without a title being in place, when the tow company sells the vehicle, that's what requires that salvage yard to get a title for it. Is that not correct? There's no title in place. There's just this certificate. And if the salvage company buys the vehicle, then they're responsible to get a title.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll move my amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Chair would now, is there any other discussion on the bill? Seeing none, Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass out HB 2147 favorably as amended.
Or second? Second is by Representative Delperdang. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Before we adjourn today, I really do want to thank all of the stakeholders that were involved in negotiating this compromise. I know that I think it's just a great example of what we should do here. A lot of times that we don't always do is where we try to help people that have problems find solutions to those problems. We don't always have to come up with them ourselves. Sometimes we can just serve as a sounding board to initiate that change. So all of you that are stakeholders, thanks so much for your work on this. I can't thank you enough. Representative Ballard.
Thank you. I'll make this. I want to thank the chair for this because you look at all of this discussion we had. And I thought I understood it. Then I got confused again, and you took the time for us to go through and really work it. We don't always have time to do this to a bill, and when we get on the floor, that's when we find out where all the problems are. Hopefully, we have alleviated that. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Representative. Okay, if there's nothing further for the body, we're adjourned.